In northern Ethiopia, the town of Lalibela's rock-hewn churches have stood for centuries, but can the tourist trade that has grown up around them survive?
As the world celebrates this year's Blood Donor Day, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research introduces a Blood Hub app to manage the donor system in the country.
High-tech help for the women fishmongers of Lake Victoria. With a new app developed in Kenya, fisher sellers improve their marketing prospects and fend off sex for fish exploitation by fishermen.
Hello there. Thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Osoa, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent Makori at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Osoa in Lagos brings you that story.
The Nigerian Institute of Medical Research has introduced Blood Hub, an app which, when fully operational, is expected to be a donor management system for the country. The Institute introduced the app during the 2022 World Blood Donor Day, and in another part of town, the Lagos State government is raising the need for more persons to join the blood donation crusade to meet up its minimum target in blood needs.
Blood donation is seen as an act of solidarity by individuals who support the efforts to save lives.
I'm very happy donating blood. It's a painless experience. But going forward, I actually would like to donate maybe every 6 months or thereabouts, maybe like 3 times in a year.
Health practitioners are concerned about the poor culture of blood donation, which they say has cost a lot of people their lives due to unavailability of blood at critical points of their treatment. In Nigeria, 80 to 90% of maternal mortality is as a result of bleeding complications made worse due to shortage of blood.
Blood donation.
Raising awareness for increased voluntary donation is the reason the Lagos State government is holding a symposium and scientific conference in commemoration of the 2022 World Blood Donor Day.
Voluntary donors or donors generally have a lower incidence of cancers, a lower incidence of liver diseases, a lower incidence of cardiac diseases.
The State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, says Lagos is short of 100,000 units of blood, which must be addressed critically.
We've only managed to hit 50%, which means that there is a big gap. We have a blood donor bus. We have all kinds of activities. We've acquired new equipment.
Over at the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, the concerns are the same. Doctors here know only too well the challenges of getting blood, especially for sickle cell patients.
You call and call, nobody picking the call. They're desperate, frustrated, nobody picks the call. Finally, they pick the call and they say they don't have blood.
We need a system where we can identify who has what, who is generating what, who is donating what.
It's these problems of availability, access and records that the Blood Hub, a new invention of the Institute, hopes to solve.
We hope to first of all achieve the target of retaining at least 1 million donors in the next 1 year. Now, how did this Blood Hub work? Blood Hub is not standing alone and is not intending to reinvent the wheel. We have structures in Nigeria for blood services, but these structures, there is no synergy. So Blood Hub stands for us to synergize all stakeholders involved in blood services in Nigeria.
Life. So yes, I'm helping ourselves. So we should actually...
Now that it has been introduced, NIMA is expecting contributions from those closest to the business of transfusion, such as hospitals and blood banks, in order to fine-tune the app. NIMA hopes to release the app for use within 2 months.
Joining us to discuss more on blood donation in Nigeria is Dr. Anne Ogbena, who is the head Department of Hematology and Blood Transfusion, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Glad to have you on Africa 54.
Thank you.
Well, let's start off by talking to us about your assessment on blood donation in Nigeria?
So I will say we have a long way to go concerning blood donation in Nigeria, because when we look at the available data, we know that in Nigeria, the estimated blood need is about 1.5 million per year. And now we're barely at about 500,000 per year, giving us a deficit of about 70%. That tells us that if we're going to score ourselves as a nation, we'll just have 25% as our score. So we have a long way to go.
What do you think is responsible for that?
I believe it's multifactorial. We have myths, we have culture, you know, in my own opinion, topping the list. But there's also the fear that people have of being pricked by needle. So when I talk about myths, some people believe they don't have enough blood. Some believe that the blood they donate will be used for rituals. And so these are things that we need to deal with in order to encourage people to come and donate. So those are key things. I mean, sometimes people say availability of time and things, but key on the list are those three things that dissuade people from coming.
Could you tell us about the benefits of blood donation? Maybe that will help enlighten a lot of people.
Yes, blood donation is actually beneficial both to the recipient and to the donor himself. For the recipients, I mean, we cannot quantify life. So for someone who will have died, if that blood was not available timely, then the benefits cannot be quantified. But to the donor as well, there are benefits. And I would like to lightly divide them into emotional and health-wise. Emotional studies have shown that people who donate have less stress, they have less tendency to be depressed, and this might be associated with the fact that you have a good feeling for knowing you have helped someone or saved a life. In terms of physical benefits, studies are also showing that donating blood regularly will reduce the risk of might reduce the risk of cardiovascular diseases and the risk of cancers in the patient. And another thing is that because if a person is a regular blood donor, it means that he gets a medical checkup done regularly. And therefore, for such donors, they're able to pick early signs of diseases or disorders in their health faster than people who are not regular blood donors.
So, can anyone donate, and will there be any frequency if they were to donate?
Yes, not everyone can donate. We have blood donation criteria. The first is age. Usually we want you to be between, at least in Nigeria, between the ages of 18 and 65. Some countries allow younger ages, probably 17. Then we want the weight to be greater than 50 kg. And all this is to make sure that the donor himself is safe to donate. And then we check for any medical history that might compromise the health of the donor and the recipient. And of course, patients that have high risk of transmitting viral infections are also excluded from donating.
Are there any side effects to blood donation?
Usually we do not see side effects, but rarely they could occur. And the common one we see a feeling of vomiting, which we call nausea, sometimes dizziness, and then you might have a bruise at the site in which the needle is passed. But most of the side effects with adequate fluids and resting, dizziness and nausea wear away. So rarely do we see, but they could occur.
Dr. Lalibela, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Nigerian startups, mostly in the financial technology sector, attracted nearly a quarter of $5.2 billion invested in African startup companies last year, according to the African Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. Timothy Obiezu in Abuja profiles the mobile money service.
In February, the Nigerian technology startup Crowdforce announced a big break. It had received $3.6 million from investors to expand its financial services operations to many more underserved communities.
What we're doing is we're creating jobs, right? We're creating avenues for people to make extra income in their communities.
Crowdforce was initially launched as a data collection company 7 years ago. But the company completely overhauled its business model when it realized it could fill a need for bank accounts.
Because when we collected data on 4.5 billion traders, what we saw was a lot of them didn't have bank accounts. And then the ones that had bank accounts had a very tough time accessing the cash that was sent to them. That's where we kind of realized, look, there's a bigger problem to solve here.
In a recent report, the industry group said African startups attracted $5.2 billion from venture capital last year, and that West Africa, led by Nigeria, accounted for the largest share of investment. AVCA says investors are looking to cash in on Africa's huge population of young people.
Africa has the most youthful population in the world, and as the proportion of skilled labor increases, then we expect to see a surge in human capital.
AVCA says increased internet penetration in Africa and more favorable government policies are also contributing to increased investments in financial technology services or fintech. But there are obstacles to overcome, such as weak currencies and policies, say some experts.
The standard of living is quite low, and our regulations haven't been consistent in recent times.
Yet, with new talent emerging in technology, more startups with big goals are emerging in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Fuel price inflation has caused such alarm in South Africa that governments and central bank have been taking action to soften the impact on consumers. For Fazile Dlamini, it was imperative to address the issue in an environmentally friendly and sustainable way, and has come up with an alternative solution: a three-wheel electric scooter.
South Africa's delivery bike game may have just gotten an electric jolt with this three-wheel electric scooter. Dlamini is the founder and CEO of Green Scooter, which sells and leases these scooters and also provides a so-called last mile home delivery services to small businesses such as fast food outlets in Johannesburg's townships. The scooters, which resemble tuk-tuks with a stylized design of curved lines, are manufactured locally with a Swedish firm acting as a technical partner. Dlamini came up with the idea for Green Scooter after his job applications were rejected by Uber.
Power is an issue. So it doesn't really directly affect me, but it does affect my sales, because when people think, they'll have range anxiety, that, oh, what if I go to this place and there's no energy? So, I mean, when I built the business in survival mode. And I always encourage it with all of my clients, is that always think in survival mode in the event that you may not have power in a particular day. Or look at an alternative. Some guys have purchased their own UPS, and you're charging in this particular unit, it's a 4 kilowatt battery. In our latest units are, it's a 5.1 kilowatt hour battery. People are literally now using those, and they're taking power into their own hands, literally.
Petrol and diesel prices have gone up by a third in South Africa in the past 12 months, and a forecast to accelerate further, prompting the Treasury to extend cuts in fuel levies and the central bank to raise interest rates.
The townships is a place for me that sits close to home, because when would the township ever have seen electric vehicles actually operating, where people can use the vehicles to generate an income and take more money back home because they don't have those fossil fuel troubles.
Green Scooter has sold or leased 60 vehicles since it launched in 2018, and the pace has accelerated in recent months as fuel prices have soared.
A lot of things that are happening in the world from a global warming perspective, it's not our fault. But if you can contribute towards fixing it, if you can contribute towards empowering and elevating your own society, then that's why I'm doing it. I mean, it's a socially impactful business.
South Africa has struggled for several years with electricity shortages that sometimes result in load shedding or planned power cuts. Dlamini said electric scooter users could overcome this challenge by using uninterrupted power supply units, devices that can store electricity when the power is on and for it to be used when it is off. For customers, it was exactly what they were looking for.
I used it because of accessibility. It went to places like Soweto. You could order from Soweto, Alex, those places, like when in lockdown, it wasn't on Uber Eats and all of that. So it was very convenient.
He said his advice to his clients was to always think in survival mode and plan ahead.
It's time now for a short break, and as we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, a Franco-Tunisian water tech startup designs a machine which they say transforms air into water.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. The northern Ethiopian town of Lalibela, a UN World Heritage Site just a few miles from the Tigray region's border, was a tourist hotspot before the war. Known for its rock-hewn churches, tourism came to a halt with fighting that saw the town change hands several times. For VOA, Henry Wilkins looks at its efforts to recover in this report from Lalibela.
The rock-hewn churches in Lalibela have stood for almost 900 years, it is thought. Last year, however, the UN expressed serious concern for their future as Lalibela became a battleground in Ethiopia's civil war. During the conflict, the town changed hands at least 5 times between forces from the Tigray region and the federal government and allied forces. Bayene Abate is the chief receptionist at Lalibela's Top 12 hotel. He says the hotel was ransacked and used as a field hospital by forces from the Tigray People's Liberation Front during the occupation. They were only able to reopen 2 weeks ago after the cleanup.
Yeah, the main problem is hydroelectric power, water supply, even the road was not yet finished. It was the contract was the Chinese people. They take all the machine, the TPLF soldier. Because of that, many tourists not coming here. Just a few tourists coming by airplane.
It could have been worse. The hotel next door was hit by an Ethiopian government drone strike after TPLF forces occupied it, residents say. The town's economy relies on Ethiopians' pilgrimages and the international tourism that has sprung up around the churches. The combined effects of COVID-19 and the conflict mean visitor numbers have plummeted in the last 2 years. The town is struggling to recover. There is no electricity and access to water was severely affected. Tinku Fente, who sells souvenirs to tourists outside one of Lalibela's churches, says earning a living under the TPLF was tough.
The war totally froze my business. During the conflict, no one even dared to try to sell souvenirs and religious books at the market as we were far too scared. The TPLF soldiers would steal any money you made anyway, so we just chose to stay away.
Local tour guide Ayalu Abe said his business shut down during the conflict too. Now he's finding it nearly impossible to recover.
But after this case happened, almost these 2-3 days, at least, just a chance to working as a tour guide. But for the last 3 years, nothing any else. All the things it's blocked or it's closed, so no one is working properly in here.
UNESCO says it plans to support the city of Lalibela.
Our major concern is the communities who are living in the site, who are caring about the site, who are caring about this important World Heritage Site, to manage the site and continue using it the way they have been doing since many, many centuries.
Asomo said a UNESCO delegation is due to visit at the end of the month to assess the type of support that is needed. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Lalibela, Ethiopia.
Cumulus, a Franco-Tunisian water tech startup, is designing a machine which they say transforms air into water. The company hopes to help find solutions to drinking water shortages in Tunisia and beyond.
Water scarcity and the depletion of underground water are increasing due to climate change. To tackle this, a Tunisian startup takes up the challenge by inventing a machine that provides solutions to the problem of water scarcity. The first Cumulus 1 machine was set up in an elementary school in the remote town of El Bayada, near the Algerian border, that lacks proper access to drinking water. The machine has been set up in the school, but the startup is still waiting for approval from the government before starting to use it. The cost of setting up the first machine in El Bayada school was covered by Orange Telecommunication Company.
This machine is called Cumulus. Its goal is to make drinkable water from solar energy and air. The concept is to replicate the phenomenon of morning dew.
Tricky hopes that the startup will develop and provide not only Tunisia, but the wider region with solutions to producing water in times of water scarcity.
There are two things that the Cumulus machine can find solutions for. The first is access to drinking water. Secondly is to reduce the use of plastic water bottles and also to reduce the process of transporting bottled water. When we provide water to the consumer, there will be no need for plastic water bottles. The water will be available near them.
According to the startup's website, the Cumulus One machine, which they call an atmospheric water generator, can produce between 20 and 30 liters of drinking water per day. According to World Bank data, 21% of Tunisians, 20% of Moroccans, and 28% of Algerians did not have access to safely managed drinking water in 2020.
An application developed in Kenya to improve the marketing of fish caught in Lake Victoria is also helping women fishmongers fend off sex for fish exploitation by fishermen. The Aquarec app allows traders to buy fish without having to negotiate with fishermen, as Rod Almondop reports from Kisumu, Kenya.
Karen Omondi, a mother of 6, trades fish in Kisumu along Lake Victoria. She's picking up goods she ordered on an app called Aquarec. It allows her to avoid contact with fishermen who may demand sex in return for fish. It's a problem faced by women fish traders, especially those who have fallen into debt to fishermen, says Omondi, who wanted her face blurred because of the emotional topic.
You build up a lot of debts, and it's difficult to pay it back. So you keep saying you pay later, but you end up repaying the debt by having jaboya sex with the fisher.
Jaboya means customer, and this practice has been rampant on the shores of Lake Victoria. Women advocates say the problem is driven in part by poverty and diminishing fish stocks caused by overfishing. Some 30% of the women fish traders are involved in jaboya, say officials with the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute.
Especially the widowed ones, they have to fend for their families, yeah. So they would feel that they need to be involved in this phenomena to support their families, yeah, especially in female-headed households.
With cage fishing increasing the supply of fish to sell, the incidents of sexual exploitation have come down over the past 10 years, according to the Research Institute. Officials also predict the Aquarec app will bring the numbers down even further. Developer Dave O'Ketch says he designed the app to improve fish marketing and is surprised to see how it has impacted jaboya.
We have been amazed to see what the impact of the innovation has had in terms of how many women are now able to trade on fish in a free and open environment without subjecting themselves to the dehumanizing act of sex for fish trade, commonly known as jaboya.
Launched during the COVID pandemic, Aquarec says it has about 150 women fishmongers in Kisumu using the app. The company hopes to expand to neighboring counties and aims to enroll some 2,000 fish traders by the end of this year. As for Karen Omondi, she has set up a fish stand in her village, and she says she's relieved she can sell her fish without fear of being sexually exploited. Ruud Almendorp for VOA News, Kisumu, Kenya.
Well, that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.